Hey everybody, welcome back into the Real Family Business Podcast, where our family business helps your family business. Today we're going to talk about a topic that I think's been something we talk about often, which is as you look to grow, there are a lot of ways to grow. Thing that Keith, you and I always say to each other is it's easy to make money through growth, but it's hard to do that with people that you really enjoy being around. So today's topic is going to be loyalty, the key to growth. With that being said, I think we should start with you because I know that is probably your number one quality you look for in anybody you put around you is loyalty.
Yes. Well, when you think about loyalty, what do you think about? What are some terms or words that come up that you think about when you think of loyalty?
Dedication, privacy, security.
Yeah, I think things that don't change.
Yeah. So the word I was thinking of,
Trust.
Yeah, commitment
Yeah.
and trust.
Yep.
And so basically when you think about loyalty, you're speaking about people you can trust and people that you know that are committed for the long term. They don't give up. And so when you have an organization of people who are loyal, you can overcome the obstacles that indefinitely or that certainly will come. It will come.
Yeah, absolutely. I think when you think about it, we need to attack this from really two perspectives. How do you create loyalty? And then I think also a lot of times the thing that people think about a lot is like you want loyalty given to you, but how do you demonstrate that towards your people too? It goes both ways.
It's reciprocal in a good organization.
Absolutely,
ways, yeah.
Absolutely. So when you think about it, when you think about the kind of people you should hire, I think everybody would say they hire loyal people. What does that look like?
Well, I can tell you, there's a certain book I'm listening to right now on some of my driving, and it's a historical book, history book with some war and dealing with a certain general. And he was tough on his troops. I mean, very tough in the training and all that. But why is it they were willing to pretty much die for him and he could accomplish what he accomplished? And a lot of it went back to the fact he was in the trenches with them. He was on the front lines with them, and they saw that. And so loyalty, you talked about loyalty going both ways. If you're going to expect loyalty, if you give that to people, they feel empowered. They don't feel nervous. They know they're there for the long term as well. They're not going to lose their job or get fired because they make a mistake here and there. And so it does truly build on itself in an organization.
I think there's an element of transparency, and you mentioned honesty, right? In this day and age where everything's consumable in seconds worth of data bytes or short snippets of things, you have to find people who are deep. Yeah. You have to find people who have strong character. There's a nationally syndicated podcast host, a guy I listen to a lot, who says that you should always be the same person in public that you are in private.
Yeah.
And yet there's a lot of people who put on a certain face at work and they wear a different face at home. And that's very, very hard and very, very deep to get to that level with a person, especially when you're building an organization, you're bringing new people in. But you have to be able to assess and understand who a person is and is there consistency in who they are personally, publicly, professionally, privately. I think when you find people who are wired or have chosen to live a life in that way, I think you're setting yourself up for, I think you're laying a good foundation for a lot of loyalty to really to begin to blossom.
Well, I wanted to add on that too, because I have a quote that I was going to use similar to that. I think it builds off it well. It's by Jeffrey Gitomer, the famous sales coach. And he says, you don't earn loyalty in a day, you earn loyalty day to day. And when you were saying, you were talking about when you're looking for people to bring on your team, are they consistent in every area of their life, or does it change, the way they act one way or another? But consistency is obviously a big part of trust, and trust is a big part of loyalty. And I think that, how did you do it over the years? I mean, I look at you and your team that you built around you. Keith has been here for close to 15 years, and we have the rest of the C-suite team who's probably an average of 15 years too. There's some loyalty there because I know that it hasn't always been amazing. And no business is. There's ups and there's downs and there's valleys and there's hills. How did you do it over the years?
Well, one of the things I would say to several of these people over the years is I'll fire me before I'll fire you. And I think they actually believe that. And knowing how good they are, they pretty much knew that was probably a good decision. They're like, yeah, he is wise, And so, but I think a lot of it went back to who they were as people.
Yeah.
And so you think about family, right? I mean, we always talk about family. Well, how does that play into it? Well, when you have a family, do you have ups and downs? Absolutely. Husbands, wives do.
How do you
kids.
get through it?
Right.
Yeah, and so it goes back to, there's only one you have to get through because you're family. Well, if you do that in a work world, and you know you're loyal to each other, and as employees or employers, it goes. You mentioned the word was deep. You said deep. When you go deep, that commitment, that trust. And okay, he's having a bad day, she's having a bad day, whatever. We're going to come back tomorrow and get after it again. It goes really back to the character of that person. And so to me, I surrounded myself with people that had character. That character manifested itself in work ethic. It manifested itself in dedication, which is commitment, which is trust, which is loyalty.
Well, just to add to that point, though, I think it's easy to be loyal in the good times. I think
that's a good point.
I think being loyal in the hard times, whether that's personally or professionally or both, sometimes when you get doubled up and you feel like you got the world's caving in on you.
Yep.
That's when a person's character really shows. And again, I think if you're the same person, I think a lot of it comes back to philosophy. I heard you once say, I think you were talking in front of a crowd, and you said, you want to know who a person is, look into what they believe. Yeah. And I say if you want to know who an organization is, look into who they are. I mean, what are the principles? What's the philosophy? And you can get lost in the soft sciences of philosophy and a lot of that stuff. But there's also some really high quality things in there that are meaningful, that tell you a lot about how a person's wired.
So I
think that's one of the things to your question. I think that's one of the things that Jason has done as a CEO for this organization for a long time in the family business environment. Is he does a good job of. As he gets to know people, developing a sensor. I think he has things that he must go through. He hadn't told me what they are yet, but I think he has a checklist that he works through. That how is this person wired? And I think again, it's anecdotal, but what kind of character do they have? It's a good starting spot.
And we've already kind of covered this a little bit, I guess. But consistency. I think somebody said that earlier. But day in, day out. I don't mean the bad day. Everyone has them. But if they're day in, day out, they're working. They're trying to get better. They're improving. They make a mistake. They work on it. They don't give up. I mean, just even taking care of clients like they would want to be taken care of. Again, that golden rule concept. We're kind of merging a lot of these thoughts, but it really does go back to loyalty.
I have a story, though, that I think would bring this point out. And I know that, so we're celebrating our 25th anniversary as a company. When you think back through that, there's a lot of stories over the years of like 25 years of Rollo Insurance. And so what we did as a leadership team, we always do an annual retreat, which we probably need to cover in one of these episodes. But we did a sticky note activity. Like, they all hate it, but I do sticky note activities. I put them on the table and everybody writes them. And everyone wrote stories. They wrote like a title or a word or two words on the stories of the agency. And there were some laughs, there was some fun, but there's also some tears that were shed in that meeting when all we were doing was talking about stories of the agency. Because I think when you look back at those stories, you see why loyalty exists. And I know one of them, which he's behind the scenes right now, Josiah, who does all of our marketing stuff for us, my little brother. I don't even remember how old I was, but he flipped a four-wheeler on his neck, had to get life flighted to Houston. No one knew what was going to happen to him. Was he gonna die? What was going to happen to him? I don't even know what y'all were thinking as parents. Right now, as a parent, I can't imagine that. But I know that a story was told in that meeting that day about that day, and it was because Kristen came back to work.
Who's one of the agency's senior executives.
Absolutely. She came back to work with a kid she had just had in the hospital, because it's a family business, and she basically wanted y'all to be able to just spend time with Josiah and figure that out. That is loyalty on display in the day-to-day. That's a high moment, a low moment, but that's what happens whenever you're family, and you just work that way.
Well, and then to peek behind the scene even more, there was a time early on where small business, and we had done some things to, just say help her in certain ways that also showed that loyalty going both ways.
Yeah.
And so you can't pay for that, but you can show that you care when people have a need, and she did that. I mean,
but I think the right word is, at the end of the day, it turns into a certain familial type approach
it really
to
does.
each other.
Yeah, it does.
So why does it work in your family? The answer is figure that out and put it in place in business, because you're spending a lot of time with these people, and you should have a certain amount of care and desire for their well-being.
But there's a reason we call it the real family business.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? So let me segue off that. So again, I think your opening question that had to do a lot with what kind of people you should hire if you're trying to use loyalty as a part of your growth. I think also factoring in work ethic as a part of a person being loyal. I mean, I think it's that reciprocity. Mm-hmm. If everybody's working hard, then nobody's questioning anything. But I think even deeper within that, I think there's an aspect of how people think. A lot of people, especially today, are very outcomes based, and that's great. You have to have that in in an achievement-oriented world. But I think there's also the ability to live in, there was a coach years ago who said, some people live in vision, some people live in circumstance. And if you're all vision or all circumstance, that can be dangerous. Are you focused on opportunities or are you focused on outcomes? I think part of the balance that you have to strike when you're looking for loyalty, work ethic, and the same philosophical orientation towards, okay, we have obligations and outcomes that we have to drive on a daily basis, metrics that you have to measure, but there's also some element of hope and future-facing mindset with opportunities. Do I see the opportunities? Am I mindful of the outcomes that have to be drived? And am I, what I'm saying? Am I striking a balance with that when you're in the foxhole with other people who are loyal on some of the same?
Yeah, I think when you think about it from kind of where you're going there, obviously, what does it look like on the side? Like we talked earlier, like as a business, you have to give to your people to create loyalty. It's a two-way street, and it's a constant thing being built. But what does it look like on the side of the employee in a family business? What does loyalty look like to the ownership group in that way? Whether it's husband and wife, or whether it's whoever, a single person. Well, it looks like you working like it's your business, even when it's not. Like that is the hard work that you're talking about. Like we talk about it all the time. Like you need to have an ownership mindset. Like you walk in, and I know this is your big one because you're OCD and you see trash everywhere. But you walk in and there's like, a little bit, there's like a wrapper on the floor, right? Act like the owner, pick it up. And we mean that literally because he does that constantly.
Literally.
It's like the cup, I think, that was out on the road for like a couple of weeks, and I was just watching to see, and then I could have picked it up, but I think
what cracks me up, you want a little insight into the business,
every
right?
morning I drive in right by it.
And I think this story is going to fit into this podcast because part of the other part about loyalty is like you have to know when something's a big deal and whenever it's really not. And you have to be able to balance these things. But the funny thing that always cracks me up with him is we'll be talking about some big strategy, something that's going to be amazing for the agency. And he's like, are you kidding me? We can't even pick up the trash on the floor. How are we going to do that? I'm like, I don't know, because our job is to do this, but the mindset of you have to be able to have those conversations, laugh about them, work on them, push each other. All of that goes into the loyalty. But the loyalty, the thing that I've learned over time about loyalty is you can't create that in other people. Like we can train other people on insurance. We can train you on technology, believe it or not, because that's a learned behavior. We can train on a lot of skills. We can train you on soft skills, the way you interact with people. Loyalty is a choice that person has to make and that you have to make individually. Well, and that's the tough part about it. And that's why it goes back to character.
And you mentioned a word, work ethic, again. When I see that, and I've seen it within a lot of our folks, especially those who are, leadership level, I mean, a work ethic that's just amazing. And when you see that, man, why would you not be loyal? Because they're going to do whatever it takes to get it done. And it's not even a matter of telling them to do it. It's who they are.
I was a basketball guy. So in basketball is one of those weird sports where a single person can actually beat a team on any given day. That's why the March Madness is so chaotic, because a single player on a smaller school could have a really great day and beat the other team. But it's still a team sport at the end of the day. Bingo. Across the average, teams win more than individuals do, even in basketball. But when you think about it from the perspective of when you see a team that's playing well and a team that isn't, I know we talked about it a lot whenever I was in high school. We'd beat a team much more talented than us. But why? Well, that was 5 individuals playing on a team versus 5 people playing as a team. That goes into loyalty as well. So when you think about what you're building by bringing people on that are loyal people, and by rewarding people who are loyal people, what you're basically doing is you're buying into the fact that we can do more as a group than any of us can do individually, no matter how great of a contributor we might be.
So I know we're kind of jumping around a little bit. I think it's okay, though, because you think about some of the words you use: buy-in, trust, commitment, work ethic, okay, dedication. I'm all in, right?
Character.
Character. Okay, Churchill.
Oh,
I got a quote.
On.
Okay, so
you want me to read that for you?
Yeah, no, I don't have my readers, but I can read it. Hold it well here. Okay, listen.
You guys hold it for him, please.
Yeah, hold it for me. Listen to this quote. And I'm convinced. This is during World War II. They're bombing Britain. Yep. And I'm convinced that every man of you would rise up and tear me down from my place if I were for one moment to contemplate parley or surrender. If this Long Island story of ours is to end at last, let it end only when each one of us lies choking in his own blood upon the ground. Now, I say that to say this. He understood what they were doing. It was either life or death. If they give up, they're done. This is when Nazi Germany's bombing Britain. Now, you think about the loyalty that they had to have to what they were doing, to the cause, okay? With a leader who was totally committed, all in, they burned the ships, right? You think about the conquerors that came in, they burned the ships, said there's only one way because you can't sail back to Spain or wherever, right? That's the mindset. So when you see people in your organization or you bring people in who are bought into what you're doing, it's a pretty special thing. And I want to say this too. We may discuss this a little more later, but I want to say this because I'm reading another leadership book. I read all the time. I know y'all do too. But it talked about people's personal belief system and their personal character, which is based on what they believe and their values. And the key is if their values are aligned with the organization's values,
bingo,
you have loyalty.
Well, I meant before Simon. That would, and let me say this because there's three people at this table and I'm the only one whose last name's not Rollo.
Lane Rollo Lane.
That's right. Well, I've got a name tag from the chamber.
It's family with the company.
I got a name tag from the Chamber of Commerce one time, and it said Keith Rollo. I had it on the fridge for years. I don't know if it's still there or not, but it might be buried under a bunch of pictures of the kids. But how to inspire loyalty in your employees, and I think y'all are a textbook example as the senior most leaders of this family business, is you lead by example. Everybody looks to the leaders, especially when times are tough, but when times are good too, right? They're the Jackson, I think you and I have talked about before, right? It's like an orchestra, and there's one conductor, and everybody in the orchestra is looking at the conductor. And I think that building a culture of loyalty based on priorities, like you're saying, just sets the stage for an organizational achievement at a level that is not normal.
As we wrap this up, I think everybody's probably thinking, hey, that was great on loyalty, but I thought the title was Loyalty, the Key to Growth. And I think the reality...
We're about to tie that in then.
No, but here's what I was going to say is I think if you were listening, you understood why you can grow.
Right.
Because here's what happens when you have employees who aren't loyal. You're always rebuilding.
And you know what the cost of training and retraining?
Oh,
it's huge.
And there are stats that are going to prove that, but just emotionally. How many family businesses do you think are saying right now, you know what, this growth thing is annoying. I'm ready to just sit here exactly where we're at because growing is tough because every time we try to grow somebody, they leave or they go to a competitor or those kind of things. It's going to happen. But I think what you realize is over time, it's like building a good team. When you don't exactly even know how great it is until you do it. And then once you build that loyalty, you build momentum, you build speed, you build growth. That's what leads to growth in a way where you can't even control it anymore, all because you invested in loyalty from the very beginning. It's one of those things where it's weird because you can't touch it, right? You can't feel it. You can't exactly explain why it makes you so successful. But if you've been listening the whole time, all we've been talking about is growth. We've been talking about team. We've been talking about commitment. We've been talking about buy-in. What do you think those are descriptors of? Teams that grow and teams that win.
And let me just say that before you, I don't want to steal your thunder, but again, when it comes to loyalty, I think recognizing success outside of just the bottom line. The bottom line is obviously critical.
Yes.
But I think recognizing and rewarding unselfishness, recognizing genuine, diligent effort, I think, doing those things, it's not just about the bottom line is obviously critical. You can't lose sight of that. But recognizing the predicates to that success in the form of loyalty and coaching. And then the flip side is from a leadership perspective, coaching through the hardest or most difficult times or failures. When you're failing or struggling or grinding, I think as a leader, when you need to coach the hardest, understand that a loyal person will respond to that and will step up and perform.
Absolutely. Look, I'll tell you this right now. I actually, having come through the last couple of years, been a really tough time in the insurance industry. I prefer the bad times. I've seen them good and I've seen them bad over the last 6 years. Yeah. I prefer the bad ones because, to be honest with you, it puts pressure on you. And that old phrase, like pressure is what creates diamonds. Like we found a lot of really good people. We found a lot of good success the last couple of years in a very tough, challenging environment. Why? Because when you put that pressure on somebody, that's when you really test the loyalty. And that's when they test it against us. How do we respond to each other?
You were saying earlier before profit, rule number 6, rule number 6 is people plus purpose equals profit.
That's so
but it starts with people.
That's true.
What type of people? So if you're retraining someone, whatever their salary is, someone's making $40,000 a year, they say, I think it's double or at least time 1.5. So it's either $60,000 to replace them or $80,000 to replace them. Not counting the salary you're going to pay. That's just the cost of training. Now, think about someone who's been there 2 years, 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, 20 years. Do you know what they know? the tribal knowledge, the things in a business, especially as that business
true.
grows, it literally is worth so much money. It's unbelievable. And so when you have loyalty, whether it's look at a long tenured coach or a long 50-year marriage or whatever, there's something special about that.
We could go for another 20 minutes on that.
Yeah.
But you know what there is in that, and I think this is probably the fastest way to say it as we close. There's no politics in that. In a marriage that goes 50 years, there's no politics.
Bingo.
And in businesses that fail without loyalty, there's politics. When there's no, like, I can tell you you're wrong sometimes, and you can tell me I'm wrong, and we can be accountable to each other, and we can also motivate each other, and we can push each other.
Well, that's right.
All of those things are required within loyalty and within growth. So
Which again does mean there's no problems occasionally, but it does mean when you say no politics, what happens if someone's been with you for 6 months and they really don't know where their place is? Are they maybe going to say what they should or what maybe they think they should?
Yep.
They're tempted. But if someone's been there 2 years, 5 years, 7 years, they're liable to look. They look at someone who is another executive, maybe the president, maybe the CEO, and they'll say, "No, that I don't agree with that.
Yep.
That's crazy." And you really can have true, deep discussions.
that's when you can grow. When you have
and that
buy-in.
definitely helps the growth.
So loyalty is 100% the key to growth. Thanks for tuning into this episode. Go ahead and check out our website and our YouTube page where you can find all the episodes of The Real Family Business, where our family business helps your family business.